C-Trek is designed basically on, and you'll see the main menu in a few seconds. And we'll go to, that's the fast quick access menu, but we also have a detail menu. When we see the detail menu, you will see all the different domains and what's in there. And again, it provides information about the 50 active domains that are in CICS, currently in CICS at this point. You will be able to see things like, for example, information about the domain's anchor block and its associated control blocks. You'll be able to see if it has any queues. For example, you want to see the temporary storage queues of all the queues that you have out there. And you want to see the details on them. You will also be able to see any resource definitions. For example, how you defined your transaction trek or your transaction menu. Okay, you can see that sort of information also associated with each one of the different domains themselves. And the domains, the information in those domains, those control blocks is what C-Trek looks at to get the information from a tuning or a problem determination point of view. Okay. Okay. Now this is the normal the menu. When you enter the transaction TREK, T-R-E-K, you will, this is the main fast access menu. You just enter a number. If you want to see temporary storage, you enter 12 and hit enter, and it'll take you to the temporary storage area. Okay. So depending on what you want to see, the fast access, you can use this sort of thing. And again, the reason I have that little arrow there is I want you to see the word menu. Okay? Menu is in green. And that means that whenever you see that in green, it basically means you enter with the transaction K, C-R-E-K. However, if you come in with the authorized transaction TREK, again, the one's controlled by RACF or top secret or whatever you're using, you will notice that any display where you can modify or change or cancel something, the 4 characters in the front, or 3 characters, will be in red. And that means that, you know, you're in the authorized transaction and that you're allowed to do like kill a task. And we'll see what you can do with tasks and so on. Any questions? By the way, I didn't mention, but C-Trek, there's a version of it, you know, all the way back to the old CICS ESA. But we normally, you know, we're currently supporting version 5 and version 6. And version 6.2 came out about a week and a half ago. I think it's the 14th of June. And as you can see from this display, this is the 6.2 display for it. So C-Trek does support the latest releases of CICS. Okay. Okay, now, from here, I normally go to this part, which is the detail menu. And it's divided really in 2 parts. The top part has all the domains in it. Okay, when you look at it, every single domain, the kernel domain, the loader domain, the logger, the directory domain, the application domain, all of these domains are in there. And if you want information about a particular domain, for example, if you go to the loader domain will give you the information as to, you know, the 2 control blocks, the CPE and the APE, gives you all the information about the module, the object that you have that's in memory, and what library it came from. Okay, what the library it came from. Things like, for example, the directory domain, the DD, all the resources you define, you know, all the transactions, the programs, you know, your TCP/IP definitions, all of that is in the directory domain. The dispatcher domain, okay, and CICS, the dispatcher task, basically uses 4 domains. For a user task, uses 4 domains. It uses the kernel domain, which is the one that controls all the TCBs, the QR TCB, the LA TCBs, and so on. It's the one that puts you to execute itself. The dispatcher domain, which is the one that handles the priorities and says who's the next person to dispatch. And it tells the kernel, dispatch this task. You have the transaction manager domain, which basically controls things like max task and T class and so on. And then you have the application domain, which has the TCA is the main control block, and that has the information about the application that you're executing. Those 4 domains, you know, if you want more information, you just select the one you want, and it'll give you the information associated with that particular task and so on. Okay. And again, the top part has all the domains that are available within CICS. There is one in that list we're cheating. It's not a domain itself, which is the CQ domain, console Q domain. Uh, we put it down as a domain. It's not a domain. If you use the transaction CEKL, the kill transaction, that information regarding the use of the kill transaction is in the CQ information, the console queue. And it'll provide for you also a trace table. And it tells you, what CEKLs you've executed. And, it gives you all the information you need with the use of CEKL and so on. So, that's some of the information you can get in the CQ domain. You also have for example, the dump domain. The dump domain, besides being able to see what the anchor block has, you will be able to see what the system dumps are and what the transaction dumps are. It'll give you the different information on it as to how many of each one have occurred in the day. And you'll see how many have been suppressed and what options you have. For example, an option which people don't realize that it's there, when you define a particular dump, that you want to control, for example, an ASRA, one of the options you have is to terminate. If this type of cancellation occurs, you can terminate CICS. And, if somebody has that in there, you should be well aware of it because CICS just goes to end the job. You don't get any information. The only thing you have is that we had an ASRA, for example, and CICS ended. So C-Trek in its health check can also identify if you have the terminate for any particular dump code that you want to control. Anyway, so you have the top part of it, which has all the domains. Then the bottom part, and it's probably one of the areas that you'll probably start whenever you start with tuning your system, is you have 5 or 6 other things that you can do. You can see information about the operating system. You can see information about DB2. You can see information about a view and cancel users. And normally, when you look at the tasks that are being executed, you're going to see that in transaction number and transaction ID. But this particular display provides it for you in user name. And besides giving you the transaction number and the transaction ID, you'll also see who's the user that's doing it. And so you can basically you want to see that in case you want to talk to somebody in particular as to what he's doing. And by the way, C-Trek does provide for you not only the user ID, it also gives you the user name. Okay, so at any point that you are looking at any transaction or anything that's being held up, you will be able to identify who the person is. Now, naturally, if you're using one of these generic type user IDs, well, you're not going to be able to get that information. But if you have people that have to sign on, you will be able to see those people by name as they execute the different transactions and so on. Then you have the miscellaneous domain, and you have, come back in a second to the other one. And the miscellaneous domain may sound, like it's miscellaneous, but it has a lot of information in there. For example, if you want to see what LE options you have specified, or you want to see, for example, you look at your COM area, your communications, your EIB area, and you see, oh, the command that I issue was a 0602. Okay, what's a 0602? Well, we have a function key in there option where you say 0602, and it'll tell you that's a read from a VSAM file. Okay, so you have that sort of information. We also have VTAM information in there that you will be able to issue a VTAM message also, and you'll be able to do a display command. And if you're authorized, you'll be able to issue vary commands from CICS without having to go out to another session to do that sort of thing. It'll also analyze the buffers uses for you with a vbuff decision there. You'll also have something which is very useful, a VSAM space calculator. It'll go out there for you, and you say, look, I have a file that's 100,000 records long. It's just to use an example, 500 bytes max length, 500 bytes average length. And I want a 10% free space in the data, the CI, and I want a 5% in the CA. And it'll sit there and it'll calculate how much space you need for it. So from the very beginning how much space you're gonna request or you're gonna have. It would calculate the best CI size for it for that particular request that you're doing. So it's a vSAN space calculator in there. You see, there's some other things in there. It also has, this is where the event handler resides. You can basically say, event handler, tell me what's happened today. And it'll tell you any cancellations that's captured. And again, the cancellation of ASRA, SOS, and storage violations. If you don't have any, or you want to look at something that occurred last week, you hit PF2, enter the date that you want to see, and it'll go back for you and give you that information, what would happen on that particular date. And you put your cursor on the particular entry that you want and hit enter, and it'll give you all the details on that. So the miscellaneous domain may sound like it's not important, but there's a lot of useful information in there. If any one of you want to be interested, I can dial into the system and you can see the different domains there. We also provide information on MQ. And MQ, from a CICS point of view, there's not really much you can do there. But you can see, which queues you were using and so on. And within CTREC, it'll give you that information for you. Okay. And then the one which I bypass is the one that you will probably be using first, is the performance options. And you'll go to SU and you will get all the different things that you can look at. You want to look at temporary storage, transient data. You want to look at files, and we'll see the file menu, so you can see how many things you can do in the file area. And you have things like, for example, a session, which is a very important one, because, for example, you come in, you're sitting in an AOR, you're sitting in an AOR, and you say read a file, and you don't get an answer. You sort of get hung up here. Well, when you go to the FOR and you say, which one is it? Well, you look at it and it's, you say, wait a minute, everybody's CSMI here. Which one corresponds to the one I want? And this is the session will identify from what region it came and what task and what transaction it was and so on. What terminal transaction ID, excuse me. Yeah, so that's one of the things you have there. You have also things, for example, the top 100. For example, what are the top 100 transactions that I've executed? What are the top 100 programs? I can see how many programs have been loaded. For example, so that's a very important one, especially if you're a little bit short on storage, because it'll tell you how many times the program's been removed and has to be reloaded. Whenever you see that a program has been removed, it basically means that you're running short on storage. And it's a precursor that you're close to getting short on storage conditions. So when you ever see programs being removed, you want to start looking at, I need to tune virtual storage here, because otherwise I may have a problem. Now, tuning virtual storage is very simple. If it's above the line, it's very simple, because it's just a matter of seeing if you have enough storage still left available, and just, with a CEMT command, you can basically increase it. Below the line, if you still have virtual storage, you can do it also. But in many times below the line, you don't have any storage really available to be able to expand it. So that's the sort of thing that you'll be able to see. The performance option is also where the health check is located. And that's where you would select it. And we'll look at the health check a little bit later on. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. What are some of the things you can do when you're authorized? Well, you can terminate a program, a transaction. You can purge it. You can force it. You can force purge. You can terminate it. Terminate it is an interesting thing. It basically is, if the transaction is running on a terminal, it'll take the terminal out of service. Okay. Sometimes it doesn't. Purging a transaction or force purging it, doesn't eliminate the transaction. But terminate, when you eliminate the terminal, it'll do it for you. And you now have the kill option. And as IBM warns you, and you'll see it, that CTREC will also warn you, a big, disclaimer there. It tells you, use this as a last resort, because you could bring down the system. Okay, but again, it's available. You can do it with a CEKL transaction. And what we do is implement the CEKL transaction online. Okay, you can open and close files. You can alter storage, CICS storage. You can issue a new copy or a phase-in of a program. You can kill a TDQ or a TSQ, and you can issue vary commands from VTAM. I think there's a couple of other things you can do, but I can't remember them right now. But these are some of the things that you want to control if you don't want everyone to have that capability of being able to force purge the transactions and so on.